Hello and welcome to this explanation of the Romans box by me, Mr. B from mytopicbox.co.uk. Okay, so here we go, but before we get started, let me just explain teachers how it works. I'm going to take the item out and I will then show it and explain it to the pupils with a fact file as well that will come on in the background, and as I do that you can pass it around, and of course you can pause it whenever you want to ask any questions. So let's get started with the first one, which is this, a child's wooden sword. This is item number 1, so you feel free to pass it around, and let's go to the fact file.
Okay, so our first item today is this replica wooden gladius sword. The boys who trained the young Roman boys wouldn't have had a fancy one like this all painted up, it would have been just a wooden one. But it would give a good example, a good what we call approximation of what it felt like to hold a real sword, so they could get used to it. Because from a very early age, Roman boys who were maybe quite rich families were trained to fight. It was the main weapon of the Roman soldier, of course, the real one. They were short so they could fight up close, and they were only one part of a whole armoury of things that soldiers had. They had a pugio, which was a dagger that they wore on the belt, and they also had something called a pilum, which was a spear. So there you go, our first item, a replica wooden gladius sword.
Okay, so let's get on to item number 2, which is this miniature Roman helmet. It's quite cute, this one, I really like this. So, onto the fact file.
Okay, so now we have this mini helmet, which is a really good way for us to show you what the helmets look like without taking up the whole box and basically just sending you a helmet and nothing else, because they are very big. So this little tiny helmet here is exactly the same as a normal size one in the shape and the appearance and what it's made from. They're made from steel. The proper size helmets here were called gallia, although some were also called a cassis. It covered 75% of the soldier's head, which is actually more than modern soldiers' helmets, which is quite surprising. It had a leather strap to keep it on, and we also had something called an arming cap. That's sort of a more modern name, but basically what it was a little woolen and cloth cap that went underneath so it doesn't hurt. When you get hit on the head, it just doesn't bash as much as it would if it was just the cold hard metal on top of you. So there you go, a mini helmet.
And now on to item number 3, which is affectionately called a sponge on a stick. It's got an interesting history, this one. Let's go to the fact file and find out what I'm talking about.
Okay, so this is one for you horrible history fans out there. A sponge on a stick, used to wipe yourself after you went to the toilet. It was shared with other people as well. Absolutely incredible that they could do this. It was so unhygienic, but you've got to remember, items like this tell us really about the Roman people, about what they thought and what they felt and what they understood about the world. They didn't understand that you could get germs. They didn't even know what germs were. They didn't wash their hands after they went to the toilet, you know. Never mind using this or using basically the same toilet paper as other people. Pretty disgusting. A sponge on a stick.
And now on to item number 4, which is a sample of Roman chainmail. Now you might want to pass this around later. You can pass it around now, of course, to have a look at, but if you wanted to all try it on and maybe have your picture took with it, you can do, because I've designed it so you can wear it like this, so we call this a wearable. So there you go, Roman chainmail sample. That's item number 4. Let's have a look at the fact file.
Now this is a personal favourite of mine. I absolutely love chainmail because it really does tell you about the life of a soldier. I've worn chainmail before when I've done workshops in schools, and it weighs 10 kilograms. It's really heavy, and by lunchtime, by the end of the day as well, it really hurts your shoulders. It was used by auxiliary soldiers, the chainmail. Now they were what we call the extra soldiers. That's what auxiliary means, and they were normally captured villagers. So captured villagers who were forced into fight for the Roman army. They got a choice. It was either fight for the Roman army or die. Not much of a choice. It was held together by rivets. Rivets are little small pieces of metal, almost like little screws, a little bit maybe like nails as well, that go through each link and holds it together. So it's very strong, but not strong enough to stop a sword or an arrow, and that was the big problem with it. The plated armour that they wore was much better, as it says there. Not as good as regular armour, but there you go. They were auxiliaries, and a lot of the Roman generals didn't really care about them that much. So there you go. It's replica chainmail.
Now item number 5 completes this first layer, and that is a Roman altar, which was very important to Roman soldiers to carry these around with them when they went campaigning. So you know what I'm going to say? Let's go to the fact file.
Okay, so this is a really interesting one. This really does tell you about the life of a soldier who was travelling around the Roman world, which extended as far east as Turkey and as far north as Britain, of course. So they went all over the place, and when they went there, they liked to take their gods with them, or should I say, little things like this where they could worship their god. So an altar is a place where you worship a god. And Romans were a bit like, they sort of collected them, a bit like one of these Pokemon games, you know, and you go around and you collect them. They just collected them from everywhere. Wherever they went to a new country, they would adopt a new god. One of the most famous gods was called Mithras, and there's many temples to Mithras in Britain. You could also, they used to think that you could send a message to Mithras by folding it, writing it on a little piece of metal, soft metal called lead, and throwing it in a temple. Whether they got that message, I don't know, but that's what they thought. So here you go. This is a little soldier's altar carried wherever they went to worship their gods, such as Mithras.
So now it's on to the second tray, and item number 6, which is real Roman coins. Let's go to the fact file.
Okay, so now I've already mentioned a few times how items can tell you about the person and the time and the period, such as the sword and the chainmail and things like this. And this is a really good example, maybe the best one, Roman coins, because Roman coins actually have the pictures of the emperors on, or they even have pictures of their achievements on as well. So some emperors, for example, had pictures of them conquering tribes in Britain or other places, and them coming back into Rome in sort of a parade and things like this. So they're really good for dating. So if an archaeologist finds a Roman coin with a really clear inscription like that, they can find out exactly when it was from. However, the problem is with Roman coins, as you can see these ones in the picture, these bronze ones here, is they just go dull after time, and a lot of Roman coins you find just look like a little round bit of green metal, which is the same ones in this box here. Unfortunately, we've not got any with really clear indications, but you might be able to see maybe just the outlines of pictures on there. But there you go, they're still pretty nice to hold. You know, these things were held 2,000 years ago by real Roman soldiers. So there you go, real Roman coins.
Now number 7 is a great example of Roman art and the way that they used art, from things called frescoes, which were like sculptures on the walls, to full-size sculptures, to express how they felt and to sort of explain what their world was like. And this is a replica of a gladiator from a wall in Pompeii. So that's item number 7, the gladiator relief. Let's go to the fact file.
So here we are with another really interesting one. This is a gladiator carving, and this is copied after one from Pompeii, and there's no better way really to find out about how people live their lives than looking at their artwork. And this one was carved obviously after a gladiator fight. There's 2 gladiators there. This is different than the one you've got in your box, of course, but this is the same sort of thing. It depicts this gladiator fight, but it wasn't just the only thing that Romans depicted in artworks. They also put great battles and victories. There was an emperor called Trajan who had an amazing, what was almost like a cartoon going around a column, and as you walk round it you could see everything that they'd done in a recent battle that he'd won. So they just prized loads and loads of pictures of what they did as a real way of showing exactly what they did and what their history was all about. So there you go, we've got a gladiator carving.
Okay, so on to item number 8, which is really interesting. We've not been able to get these for a long while. They've only came up for sale recently, and I've got several of them to put in the boxes. This is number 8, a Roman diploma, or should I say an auxiliary diploma. Let's go to the fact file.
So here we have another great item that really tells us about Roman life, or should I say specifically about the life of one of those auxiliary soldiers we mentioned before, these extra soldiers who were sort of not treated as well as the other soldiers. They were given the worst armour. Remember that chainmail from before? Well, these guys, after 25 years, just imagine that, you'd have to serve 25 years as an auxiliary soldier, you'd get one of these, you'd get a certificate. It's incredible to think that they fought for 25 years just to get a certificate. but it was what the certificate meant, which was the main thing. The certificate actually meant that they were Roman citizens. Now this meant that if you went to Rome or another place that was governed by Rome, then people had to treat you the same. You could pull this out. It was a bit like an ID card to say how special you were, that you had to be treated with respect. So some people, you know, for this was a really special thing to have after years of being treated badly as an auxiliary soldier. So there you go, a replica diploma.
Okay, it's time for number 9, a wooden soldier's spoon. Not necessarily a soldier actually, anybody in Roman society would have had one of these, but let's find out more in the fact file.
Okay, so now we have this replica wooden spoon, a bit fancy actually. I do like our copies, but they are a little bit fancier than the ones that the Romans would have had themselves. It would have took a long time to make a spoon, so they were quite expensive, we think. You'd either make it out of metal, a soft metal maybe like copper that you could bend quite easily, or wooden like this one. Of course a lot of the wooden ones don't survive because they just rot away in the ground. Now only spoons and knives were used at the time, as forks weren't invented. They were actually invented towards the at the end of the Roman occupation of Britain, which was around about what we call the 4th century. So just as they were being invented, the Romans left. So there you go, a wooden spoon.
Now on to number 10. You might have noticed already there's only a few items in here that are really from the Roman times, because they are very rare, and this is one of them, and this is one of my favourite. And this is a Roman hobnail, which is from the bottom of the boot. So let's go to the fact file.
Now, I said boot then, but you might recognise this more as a sandal. We've got an example here of a sandal that was found on a Roman site. You can see it's quite old, but it's surprising that it's lasted all this time. It's only made out of leather, and the hobnails are on the bottom of them, because the problem is with leather sandals is that they just wear away. The leather wears away quite quickly, and you're walking on rough ground, so basically you need nails in the bottom. So the sandal was called a caligae, and this is really interesting here. You can see it there. Emperor Caligula got his name from kicking his guards as a boy. That's what we think anyway. That was his nickname. And what could you do as a guard? You would have to take it, because he was a prince who wasn't a very nice guy. He was only a little boy who was a bit of a brat really, and he would just kick the shins of the guards. So you just have to put up with it, I suppose. So there you go, a Roman hobnail of the kind worn by Caligula.
And again, for number 11, we have another real Roman artifact, which is this Roman Samian ware pottery. Just think a real Roman held this. It's incredible. So let's go to the fact file.
Now, pottery here is one of the most common things found from Roman times. The thing is with pots in those days was that they just weren't very good. The clay that they made them out of was quite weak. They didn't put anything in to strengthen it. So basically they broke quite easily. So if you imagine if you lived in a place for years and years and years, and every day you had a drinks bottle or a can of Coke or something like that and you threw it out, then the place would be surrounded by them. And it's the same with pots. So you do find a lot of these. But this is a really special one. It's called Samian ware or Samian ware, and it was better than grey ware. Grey ware was a kind of Roman pot that was very, very basic that poor people had. But Roman pottery like this, which was Samian ware, was a little bit more expensive and a little bit more fancy. So there you go, some nice Roman pottery for you.
Okay, let's move on to number 12. This one isn't necessarily a Roman item, but it'll make sense when you see the other one that comes after it, because it's a pair of 2 brooches, and this first one is a Celtic brooch. So this was the time the Romans invaded Britain. So let's go to the fact file.
So we've got the first of 2 very similar items. This one is called a Celtic brooch, or another word for that is fibula, a Roman fibula, and basically they're used in the same way. They are 2 sort of clips, if you like, with pins on that you fasten through your cloak to hold it on. We think this is a Celtic one. I say think because they did cross over. The Romans, of course, because they come to Britain, started to copy a lot of the styles of the Celts and the other way around. But this is highly likely to be a Celtic one. You'll see when we come to the Roman fibula in a moment how different they are. So there you go, a Celtic brooch.
Now to pair up beautifully with that Celtic bronze brooch, we've got this one, item number 13, which is a Roman brooch. The technical name is a fibula. So let's have a look at the fact file.
So with this different style here, you can see exactly what I'm talking about. I've chose a picture here with a few different ones. It's 2,000 years old, just like the Celtic ones, around about the same time, made of bronze in the same way. But those different styles really help the archaeologists know what day it was from. And this one at the bottom left here is called a trumpet fibula. And that's very distinctive Roman, so that wasn't Celtic, that came over, and it was brought over by the Romans. There's some trumpet fibulas above as well, but I think the bottom one really does show it really well. Also, they had other fibulas afterwards, ones called zoomorphic, which were in the shape of animals, which were really distinctive and matched up to the Roman sort of style, if you like. So there you go, a Roman fibula.
Now with just 2 items left, you've already seen this one actually, or should I say, you've already seen where it's made from, the Samian ware. This is a replica Roman lamp. These were personal items that could be carried around in a soldier's pack, or just used by anybody really. They're small enough to carry around. So as you can see, it's made from the same stuff. This is a modern one, and this of course is the real stuff. So that's item number 14, a replica Roman lamp. Let's go to the fact file.
Okay, so here's the problem. You live in Roman times, there's no electricity, nobody's invented it. Electric lights aren't going to be invented for another 1800 years, so what do? You get a little tiny container with oil, you put a little wick in it, some cloth, and you set light to it. There you go, a beautiful little Roman oil lamp.
Okay, so here we go with our final item, which is a really unique item, a Roman sundial. I'll give you full instructions in the fact file. This will be the last time we're visiting one, so I'll see you there.
Okay, so we've finally made it to the end of the review of these items in our topic box, and what a great one it is to end with, this wonderful sundial, a time-telling device like no other, a portable one. Basically, this is how you use it. You can see the curve there at the bottom, you point that towards the sun, you put a little pin in the month, and then the shadow is cast across those little divisions you see at the top. Now the Romans split their day into 6 divisions like that, so it wasn't perfect. You of course had to be sunny, you couldn't do it at night. Basically you would try to get somewhere as close as you could to whatever time you were supposed to be there, so it wasn't brilliant for arriving somewhere exactly at maybe 10 past 2 or something like that. It was just an approximate time you could get there. And the other thing is, of course, not everyone had them. So there you go, our last amazing object, a Roman sundial.
Okay, so I hope you enjoyed looking at the contents of my Roman artifact topic box. There's lots more lessons you can do with this, lots of other things that the teachers know all about, including some excellent online lessons as well, where you can actually look at 360-degree pictures and scroll around them with your fingers. So I hope you enjoy doing that. There's more questions on there as well, so make sure you try and remember some of the stuff you've learned today, and hopefully you can come top of the class by getting them right. So again, thanks very much for watching, and enjoy learning about the Romans. Goodbye.